20th, 2021, and this is the monthly meeting of the Lextran Board of Directors. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, state of emergency, and Governor Beshear's executive orders regarding social distancing, this meeting of the Lextran Board of Directors is being held via live video conference pursuant to Senate 150 and Attorney General Opinion 20-05 in accordance with KRS 61.826 because it is not feasible to offer a primary physical location for the meeting. I'm Jill Barnett, the Lextran's General Manager, and I will now turn it over to Christian Motley, Chairman of the Lextran Board of Directors. Mr. Motley, are you available?
Yeah, good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
I'm gonna do a quick roll call. I think I see who's on, but I'll do a quick roll call. Adrian, are you on? Rick, I saw Rick.
Yes, I'm here.
Harding.
Yes, sir.
Jamie.
Here.
Joe. And George.
Here.
With that, I'll make time for public comment on agenda items, if someone would like to speak on the agenda. Don't hear any. We'll move to approve the December board meeting minutes.
I'll move.
Is that a motion?
Yeah.
Is there a second?
George, second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? We will move ahead. I do have just a brief note for the chair's report. Number one, welcome back, Jill. We missed you, and we're glad to have you back.
Thank you.
And thank you to the team who managed the shop in your stead. Always grateful for the team at Lextran, who has just been very nimble over the past year or so, and so just kudos to the team. The other thing I want to mention is just, you all will remember that last year we exercised the last year of the management contract with Transdev. And so our agreement with them ends at the end of October. So it's time to begin those discussions again about how Lextran will be run. Just a note for a new contract, we probably need to get an RFP out in March, which means we'll, the way this process has been run in the past is we have a subcommittee that the chair appoints to lead that process and then come back and make a recommendation to the board. I'll appoint that subcommittee in quick order, and we'll start that process. It should be two to three meetings between now and the RFP, but that group will kind of oversee the development of the scope of work and really just oversee that process and ensure that we move forward in a way that is most prudent.
Christian?
Yeah.
Sorry to break, this may be out of order, but I just want everybody to know for quorum purposes, I probably will have to get off at 10:50.
Oh, thank you. That's fine. If it's okay with the board, then I like to try to move the action items up above the Lextran report. If that's fine, I don't think, do we need to be any formal action on that?
No, that is at your pleasure, as long as the board is okay with that, and I'll be prepared for those resolutions.
Perfect. Well, let's. I just wanted to make that brief note. I'll appoint that subcommittee, and we'll get that process started. Are there any questions on that?
Christian, one more thing that we need to vote on. This will be a walk-on motion in old business. So if you can move that just under the action items, then we can get that done before Rick leaves. So recommendation from the Finance Committee.
Thank you. Well, let's move on to the action items. Jill, would you present these?
Yes, sorry, I was on mute. The first action item is going to be Resolution 2021-01, and that is approval of the Lextran Agency Safety Plan. If this seems seems very familiar to you, that's because it is. We approved this plan back in May at the Board of Directors meeting. And at that time, it was to comply with some new FTA regulations about the change from a safety management system to an overall agency safety plan. Part of that regulation is also that the plan be approved annually, which is why we would be bringing it to you within the year. So that change, a change that is in this plan, excuse me, also replaces the name Carrie Butler with my name, Jill Barnett, as the accountable executive. And this new plan also incorporates 2020 data for this plan. So that is what Resolution 2021-01 is for this board. The agency safety plan is or was included in your board packet. And myself or John Givens would be available to answer any questions that you might have on that.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Is there a motion?
Jamie Roger, the motion to approve.
Your second?
Adrian Talkor, second.
Hey, Adrian. All in favor, say aye.
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 I'm opposed. We'll move to the next resolution. Thank you.
All right, while we get through that, I will move on to resolution 2021-02. This is a resolution to enter into an agreement for radio communications. Mr. Fred Combs teed this up nicely last month, I think, and let you guys know we were evaluating two systems. Today's resolution is requesting authority to enter into agreement with Lexington Fayette Urban County Government to provide those radio communications. Our current service agreement with Lexington Call Mobile expires on June 30 of 2021. And they have indicated to us that that is a business that they would like to get out of. Thus the reason we were exploring some other options. So the term of this new agreement is for 5 years, and did want to point out that this project is something that has been included in the capital budget, most recently in the FY21 capital budget, because we knew this end of service agreement was coming down the road. So we have planned for this. We have known this was going to happen. We tested two systems and are recommending that we enter into an agreement with LFUCG. The source of funding on this is our federal 5307 grant funds, and the total spend over the 5-year life is just over $100,000. We will be saving a little bit of money compared to what we are paying now. So that's always a little bit of good news. And we'll be happy to entertain any questions that you might have. If I cannot answer them, Mr. Combs will assist.
If I remember correctly, we looked at two partnerships, one with UK and one with LFUCG. And this is the recommendation to go with LFUCG. Anything we should know on why we chose one over the other?
Did I hear your question correctly? Why did we choose one over the other? Sorry, you broke up just a little bit. Fred was going to have more of those details, so I will let him talk to you about the technical details of that.
So yeah, we evaluated both the UK and LFUCG systems from the the technical standpoint. LFUCG offered a very similar functionality to what we have now currently. So the transition is going to be fairly smooth. Our operations are going to be smooth. Another big point that LFUCG had is police fire are also on this system. So our emergency management can become one sort of seamless place with the communications because we are part of that emergency response here in the city. So that was a bonus. LFUCG system, their proposal was slightly less than the UK proposal as well. So those were the sort of the highlights of how we ended up with the decision to go with LFUCG.
Is that helpful, Amy?
Thank you. Since I seem to be having some microphone issues, I will try to talk as least as possible.
Any other questions from board members that are on today?
Great, is there a motion?
This is Adrienne. I move to accept the resolution as written.
Thank you, Adrian. Is there a second?
George, second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Motion carried.
Right, thanks.
Thank you.
The third resolution that we have for you today is the designation of an EEO officer and ADA coordinator. This is something else that you will recall we did at the board meeting not too long ago. Today's resolution is mostly a formality. The previous resolution named me, Jill Barnett, as the EEO officer and ADA coordinator. However, since that time, my position here at Lextran has changed and I can no longer serve in that capacity. So today's resolution names Nikki Falkenberry, the Director of Finance and HR, as our EEO officer and ADA coordinator. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Any questions? If not, is there a motion?
George, motion to accept resolution 2021-03.
Second.
Is that Rick? All in favor, say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? That motion carries. George, is this on you? This next item?
Yes. The Finance Committee met earlier today, and we had a discussion on the long-term cash flow outlook. So we looked at the next 5 years. And because of changes and also because of the seemingly way that it looked like property taxes are being collected in a similar fashion as last year, it was agreed that Lextran is in a cash position to pay off its long-term debt with Fifth Third Bank. And the staff was in agreement to take this action. So I would like to make a motion that the board directs the Lextran staff to pay off the remainder of the Fifth Third loan before February 28th, 2021. So moved.
I'll second that. Rick?
Anyone have questions?
I'm sorry, George, could you, I just missed it somehow. Could you do the rationale? So we want to pay off the loan because,
We're in a cash position to do it. We will save about $280,000 in interest, and you know it's something that we weren't able to do before. But with some of the funds that we've received from COVID and the fact that our income stream, primarily the property tax income stream, seems like it's not going to be affected this year, that we're in a position to do it. And we've got 5 years left to pay on it, and our cash position at the end of 5 years would be no different, apart from the fact that we'd save the $280,000. So the committee felt that it was wise to do that.
okay, thank you.
George, this is Harding. Is there an early payment penalty that we're incurring by offloading this 5 years early?
There's not.
Okay, great.
Any more questions? We can move to a vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 Is anyone opposed? That motion carries.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Christian and Jill and Nikki.
Thanks to the finance team and finance committee and the team at Lextran for helping us take a look at that math. I know we were having a little bit of a different conversation just maybe about a year ago, and
Yes.
it's good to be in this position now. So thank you.
Very much, and I would like to express my thanks, one, to Nikki, our Director of Finance, for you know, obliging us and running different scenarios when any of us asks her for that. She's always very responsive for that. And this may not be the appropriate time in the meeting but since I didn't do it before, I do want to express my thanks to Nikki and the rest of the Lextran team for their diligence in my absence from the last 2 board meetings. I appreciate that very much. We are very lucky to have a really solid staff here.
Thank you.
Absolutely. With that, I think we can move up and go into our performance report.
Yes. Our monthly performance report will be delivered by Fred Combs this month, and when he is ready, be happy to hear from him.
Okay, I think I've got control. So this is the performance report for December 2020. As always, we start with our mission statement. We serve people in our community with mobility solutions. So some highlights from December, we implemented our service improvements that included sort of a rearrangement of how we operate at the transit center with our bay assignments. We did have a little bit of a deviation on Route 11 to catch the Lextran Christian Church and the surrounding development there. I'm sorry, Southland Christian Church. And also we did a holiday gift for our employees that included a blanket and a Kroger gift card. Anyone who was working on Christmas Day was treated to a boxed lunch. Another thing to be very proud and thankful for Nikki for is the triennial review documents. Those were submitted to the FTA. It doesn't seem like a mountain in this one bullet, but that is a mountain. So certainly thanks to her for helping keep us all in track on that task. In December, we had 139 additional trust in transit pledges, bringing our total through the end of December to 238. As we saw, we had a tweet from a customer here showing his appreciation for the mask that we sent to him. It's a really cool program. We're very pleased with how that's been received in the community. So we'll keep that going over the next couple of months and keep you posted on how it's going. So our ridership report is much more of the same as we've talked about over the past couple of months. Certainly we're down around that 40% or so on fixed route. As you see, though, the shape of our monthly ridership is really resembling the shape of the average. So we can at least now start to expect what to see over the next coming months. We don't see any sort of really deviation from this pattern. Which in one sense, it's not good to have ridership loss that we've seen over the pandemic, but on the other side, we can at least sort of plan our operations around what we've seen so far. So there is that little bit of the ability to look ahead and plan ahead. Same story for paratransit. And if we look at that in terms of their monthly averages, we see the very similar. On fixed route, we've bounced around from 40 to 45% of what we would normally see. Paratransit's anywhere from 25 to 30% of what they would normally see. But things have sort of, evened out. And again, we can expect January, February, and into next year looking much the same. Our system productivity, again, very similar to what we've been seeing over the past few months. Our ridership down, be it weekday, Saturday, Sunday. Revenue miles and hours also still reflect the service that we're putting out. So they're a tick down from what we would have last year. Productivity and trips per mile per hour also down. Same thing across the board at Wheels. Our safety indicators, preventable accidents are looking pretty good so far for this fiscal year. Injury frequency rate is a tick above what we saw last year, but again, as we mentioned last month, I don't think that's an alarming number. Days with no preventable accidents is looking good. The days of lost time, we noticed that there was a cumulative calculation in lost time that wasn't carrying through, so we've updated those numbers on this sheet to reflect what was actually going on. Workers' compensation claims, again, we are sort of in the realm of reasonable on that metric as well. Very cool in paratransit, no preventable accidents. for December, and they're looking pretty good on their safety indicators for the year. To jump over to maintenance, we've been tracking their preventive maintenance inspections, and they're a perfect 265 for 265 for the fiscal year. So I'm happy to report that they've keeping that going. And then they responded to 17 roll calls in December, and that was down from 34 in November. So very good to see that they've sort of cut that number in half. And that relates to our miles between roll calls KPI that's in the board packet as well. So very good news out of the maintenance department. Next, we have the update on our Healthy On Board Phase 4. We've been following this for the last few months. We've talked about the barrier installation. We do plan to go back to front door boarding on January the 24th. We are continuing to restore the staffing levels of maintenance and customer service. We talked about fare box testing, quality control testing on, leading into returning to fare collection. We've done a couple of rounds of that. Here over the next week or so, we will be looking at the actual paper transfers. We don't want to load those too early because of the fare medium. So our maintenance department is ready to roll to get everything in place on track for fare collection. Starting today, after the board meeting, we will begin our passenger and agency outreach to let the community know that we are going to resume selling passes, and we will be resuming fare collection. Internal training for customer service has been completed. Internal training on fare collection for operations will begin tomorrow, and we will start that with the operators that have been hired since the pandemic started and we haven't been collecting fares. So they will have a more in-depth training over the first few days of this period, and then everyone else will have a refresher over until January the 30th. So everything is on track to resume pass sales tomorrow and resume fare collection on the 31st. So I'll pause there if there are any questions about fare collection.
Fred, this is Harding. My question isn't specifically about fare collection, but about the trend line that you showed earlier.
Sure.
Given that you said that with ridership kind of following the of the annual trend, but at a lower level, are we anticipating active reductions in our operator staff to in anticipation of continued low ridership?
Not at the moment, because we are still producing, with the exception of Route 21 and 24, the same amount of service that we have always produced.
Okay.
So the amount of service out the door, with the exception of those routes, we anticipate to continue.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, I think I have one more update for upcoming procurements. We have an electric bus procurement that's underway. Something that you're going to see over the next couple of months will include the rider amenities at many places. So that's the phase 2 construction, CNG station maintenance and monitoring. The second phase of our radio project, which is the radio equipment procurement, the transit center rehabilitation. That's that TAP Town Branch Award. So that's the platform area of the transit center. As Christian mentioned to start the meeting, we'll have the management services RFP out within the next few months. And then finally, the pension fund management services RFP. So this is a list of procurements we're going to be talking about over the coming months. I think that is the performance report. Are there any questions? Any other? Certainly happy to go back some slides if there are questions on the KPIs or anything else.
Fred, I've got a question on the workers' comp claims.
Sure.
So maybe it's for John, but you kind of glazed over it as being within acceptable levels, or however you worded it. It's quite a bit higher than last year, or at least the numbers to me look like it's a lot higher than last year. So I'm just wondering if there's something that's caused it, or is it just, was last year an exceptionally good year, or just if you could explain, the nature of some of the injuries.
I think I would ask John if you're available, to step in to talk about those details.
Yes, George, the details as it relates to a specific injury, obviously I can't get into the specifics related to the injury, but the days that are cumulative are based obviously on rehabilitation, recovery, the extent of the injury. So we have a slight increase, but some of that is due to the individuals who have had more time off versus what those injuries in reference to the previous year. We do have some trends that I have identified, not of serious concern, but a couple of those particular injuries were due to some extenuating circumstances regarding recovery for that person getting back into the workplace. So that's why we had just a slight increase related to that.
Yeah, I was kind of focused on the number of claims.
Whereas we
Claim,
have 23 versus 14.
Yeah.
the claims in general, some of those, when you file a claim, you have to document that on your 300 and 301 log. Some of those are reportable, you know, based on the criteria that relates to that. So some of those trends were addressed. Some of those were small items related to particular incidents that occurred. So that was something that myself and the training department have looked at. Each one of those claims as it relates to preventability is addressed with a remedial session. So they don't always include lost time either. Some of the ones with the numbers related to lost time are a little bit more extensive if it, you know, occurs long-term PT or possible surgery, something of that nature. Then those days of lost time would accumulate more. But the claims themselves had to be reportable, but were not of a grave concern other than addressing that in remedial. Some of those related to slip, trips, and falls, and just one of those items that we had an increase in. But we've addressed those and are trying to continue to focus on that area as well.
So what impacts the workman's comp modifiers?
We have a trend, which is the claims over the last 3 years. And then that data drops off, you know, when we reevaluate the cost for our premium, which, you know, we will be ready to go back to the table here probably in the next 30 days or so. We're currently doing our annual insurance survey, and it's not so much the number of claims, it's actually how much you may pay out. Is it based on the trend over those 3-year periods and the dollar amount that is actually paid out, which is how your modifier is established. So with the number of claims filed doesn't necessarily mean that you will have an increased modifier over a certain period of time. We did have several claims that were prior to moving to this facility that dropped off our modifier established number that we had talked about previously, where it had gone down due to some things that occurred at our old facility, which was in that 3-year period when we were moving into our new location here. Some of those have gone off of our experience modifier. So it's all based on experience and 3 years of claims, and we've done very well being in the new facility and limiting those various claims that determine what that modifier may be. So modifier is still in good shape for the previous 3 years. I don't anticipate that modifier going up significantly, you know, due to any claims that I see here. As Jill and I look at the renewal period here over the next several weeks, we'll be meeting with our provider and looking at rates and numbers and discussing things related to a July 1 renewal period. But I don't anticipate that modifier being impacted by these numbers. George.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
John, what's our modifier right now?
Rick, I believe we are at around 1.12.
With one being average, right? Kind of.
One is your is where you want to be.
Right. And it's been as high as 3 at one time.
Yes. Yeah. Many years ago, we had some high modifiers based on experience and
Right.
some claims that were unfortunate that required some litigation and some
Right.
payout related to some pretty serious injuries. But that's all been corrected, and obviously some change in safety culture has brought that
Yeah.
high modifier and experience down. So
It
very
shows
pleased with that.
progress, that's for sure.
Yeah, that's for sure. Yes. Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
And if there are no further questions for me, I think we can turn it over to Nikki for the financials. Is that up next?
Yes. Okay, we've gone through 6 months of this fiscal year, and we're very pleased at this point where we are. We have our operating cash is a little higher than usual for this time of the year because of the CARES money, and we also received our large property tax payment in December. We have some grant funds that are in accounts receivable that we're waiting to draw, and everything else looks pretty normal. Our current loan balance is right at 4.3 million. So the Finance Committee, as you know, discussed that earlier today. Having trouble clicking between screens. Okay. The statement of revenue and expenses, some of the things that we looked at in the Finance Committee this morning. Like I mentioned, the property taxes, we also received a $2 million check last week. So we're right at where we should be at this point of the year. And our passenger revenue, we have a little bit of revenue there for some colleges paying for class passes to prepare for after we begin fare collection at the end of this month. We also received our UK contract funds for the period of July through December. So you'll see that in the other revenue line item. We're very pleased with our wages and fringe benefits and all of our other expenses. We are under budget in almost every item except materials and supplies, which we've mentioned before are some seasonal things that we've purchased, and also some of the PPE equipment that we can be reimbursed through the CARES grant money. But we're very happy with the way that the expenses look at this point, so I'll be glad to take any questions that you have. Okay, thank you all very much.
One question, Nikki. Trying to get to it. I know on the performance report, there were a certain number of people being hired and trained. And is that why with the wages, I know wages, we also talked last time is where we're measuring overtime as well. Is that balancing out the additional overtime with having a few employees that are not being hired, or is it pretty much equal to what you guys have seen in the past?
It's pretty equal to what we've seen in the past. We do have some overtime for to cover for some people that are on long-term medical leave. But some of the new hires, we're hiring for a new class for operators. So when we can build up a little bit of an extra board to cover for some of those runs, it will reduce the overtime a little.
Jamie, some of the training activities that you see reported every month, those are not necessarily new staff. For example, post-accident remedial turn to work training. Those are people that are current employees. And actually all of the training that's on there is people that are current employees that need some training for one reason or the other. And then we would list new employees separately, or as a separate line item, I guess I should say.
Thank you.
We usually take advantage of when UK's out to do some extra training for staff, so it's always a good time. Okay, thank you. I'll turn it back over to you, Christian.
Christian, are you there?
Oh, sorry, I was muted. We've taken care of action items. Any change orders to mention?
Not this month.
Any old business or new business? Still see some of the, did you have something there for new business?
At last month's board meeting, one of the board members had asked for a brief update on the Canopy project. We did highlight that in the finance committee meeting, but for the full board, had a few bullet points we wanted to hit on, if that is okay. Mr. Combs, would you be able to pull up your slide related to the Canopy? I'm sorry, I've got you guys going back and forth between screens, so I do apologize.
That's no worries. Okay, so quick Canopy update. As a reminder, this was a low or no emissions grant award from fiscal year 2018. The amount was $2.29 million, but we did receive toll credits to satisfy the local match, so this will be a 100% federally funded project. The Canopy is going to provide cover for the fleet along with infrastructure for electric charging stations, and it will include some green elements such as solar panels, rainwater collection, possibly a green roof or other green elements that we're investigating. At the moment, we've kicked off the schematic design to try to understand the size, shape, scale, and those elements that this canopy will have when we're finished. So we've really just started to dig in and work through that initial design. So there's not a whole lot of detail to share with you at the moment, but that is sort of where we stand.
Thank you. Any questions on that, folks?
Fred, who is the authority's consultant on this design?
Kersey and Kersey Architects.
And as we noted in the finance committee, one goal would be that the canopy would cover both the electric fleet and additional fleet.
That will be a goal, depending, of course, on budget. When the grant was originally written, what feels like many years ago, it was a very high-level concept, and as Mr. Combs stated, the schematic design and the concepts are underway. So we really don't have a hard concept to work with at this time. We will make it a goal to cover as much of the fleet as we can. Obviously, that cover is highly recommended for electric vehicles when you have that, and it just offers a secondary level of protection for all other vehicles in our fleet. We do have a handful of hybrid electric vehicles and a slightly larger number of compressed natural gas vehicles, and those two types both have they have something on the roof. The propulsion system is on the roof there, so any cover you can give those is just extra.
And in theory, does that extend the life of that fleet?
In theory, yes. Hopefully. And another comment, I won't ramble too long. This canopy or cover for the fleet is something that was considered in the original design of this campus and facility. due to cost, that was something that was taken out as we got into the project, just for financial considerations.
Thank you. Any other questions here? Great. We still have a few proposed agenda items. Quick flag here for particularly for new board members. You know, if there is something you're interested in seeing on the agenda for the next meeting,
Sure.
we'd love to have you offer that up. I want to just get on the record. I think I want to try to learn more about our involvement in the Green Check program.
Okay.
I think that might be worth talking about at some point. I don't know where we are. I don't actually know what those logistics mean for us, like where we are in the project. How long does it last? What is the renewal? But I'd like to learn a little bit more about that.
It's it is an ongoing thing to participate in. I think it's an annual. They certify you annually, I believe. So that is something that we have participated in just with some of our sustainability efforts. But we can certainly give you some more detail.
Thank you. And we are do want us to consider a closed session to wrap up this meeting, George.
Yeah. I move the Lextran board go into closed session pursuant to KRS 61.810F for discussions which might lead to the appointment, discipline, or dismissal of an individual employee.
Know about the logistics on the for this platform, but I want to make sure we.
At this time, we're going to start sliding people out.
To exit this meeting. So thank you, board members. I appreciate it. And I will see you next month. As always, I'm available if you have questions or comments.
Thank you, Jill.
We actually get a second on that motion. Sorry, this is Ann Tyler. Did we get a second on this motion?
Oh, I'm sorry. Is there a second?
Second.
Second on. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Thank you. And closed session and no action was taken. Is there a motion to adjourn?
George motion.
The second from you, Jamie. All in favor?
Second.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Y'all have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you,
everyone.
Bye, everybody. Nikki, thanks for everything today.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
All right, bye-bye.